Alright, lesson 3. Now, this one is going to be dropping back to showing a couple of other forms of style. So, today we'll cover the Blockbuster, and the bubble. These are all useful in helping develop your style and giving you more variety in how you approach your letters, and they can all be mixed up and jumbled up, but for now I'm going to just break them down simply. So for the Blockbuster is a big, huge, monolithic letters designed to take up vast amounts of space, owning the wall, and they're generally very blocky, pretty basic in their structure, but they're all about being imposing on the environment. Your Blockbuster letters. Flow still exists to some extent, but it's more about the flow is more about the integrity of your structure. So imagine the blocks the letters are made out of, 1, 2, 3, remain consistent to some degree, as if they're all made from the same thing. There's bubble letters. You might want to start with a skeleton to get you in the form, but bubbles are more, you're making it round and soft, and again they're about filling up the space. It's been inflated, so you don't want much negative space around these letters. It's got to be tight, and they kind of bulge over each other. Your bubbles. So you can see almost, like my other lessons, the spine, you have these sausages instead of a spine. Or balloons would make more sense because there's bubbles. So bubbles or balloons. Balloonless. Kind of see. Now, interesting enough, just hop into a little detail here, is Blockbusters are great to learn 3D on. You'll get there eventually, but if you're already in that world and you want to practice the 3D, then Blockbusters are the one to start on. Because of their angles and the simplicity, it really helps you understand some of your basic principles of 3D. When you shade in your 3D, it's always good to try and match the angle of the 3D. You'll find a lot of writers, when they paint their 3D, they might have little details such as this, which shoot along and follow that angle. Bubbles, though, they're already a round object. They don't have 3D necessarily coming off of it. So you want to almost show that with highlights. So you pick an area where the light might be coming from, and say that these would be a brighter colour. You might have some sort of back glow as well, which is always really nice to do. A back glow would be like something like a similar colour that might like make the others pop. So you kind of often have a glow of colour coming from another corner. Now, one way you can increase the 3D of bubbles or balloons is doing a drop shadow. So drop shadow is imagining the silhouette of this letter. Imagine that, and you just drop it down as a fraction and slide it across a fraction. So sometimes it might help if you go, okay, this top corner I'm going to drop down here, and then imagine sliding along, and then you try and draw that behind it, and then it'll come out into view. Now you wouldn't see this because that would have been dropped down so much. It's probably nestled just here out of sight. So your drop shadow would kind of pop off in one area. These would generally be a nice flat fill. But you could have some depth of it. In reality, it'd be nice to sort of soften that up. When you're painting on the wall, you can almost dust a gentle tone over the top, so it just sort of softens that. Now, similar to all the other letters I've been showing you in the other lessons, there's always opportunities to sort of play and add more story to them. Let's see. Now, stick with the E. So if I'm going to play with the flow of a bubble, because bubbles almost seem, they're so different, it's almost like, how do I create another flow in a bubble? So you'll refer back to lesson 2 if you haven't seen it, but remember fracturing a flow, that could come into effect, or kind of sculpting it a bit more. So if we have our first, so let's go all the way back and build our spine. So here's our spine, but now because we're doing bubbles or balloons, the spine has now become a sausage. Nice and soft, inflated. Now how can we extend the story and make these letters become a bit more funky, a bit more interesting? So we could attach more bubbles or more balloons onto it, like so. Remember, the negative space wants to be kept fairly small. Negative space is like the space around, in between. So this is negative space, that's the E there. So I might want to make it a bit more bubble-like. Let's bring this one coming in like this. There you go, create some kind of flow there. Maybe a kick back like that. So imagine the flow. So over here. It's always nice in your bubble letters have a little bit of cutting, like your line following into the shape, because imagine it's 3D, it's a round shape, so that's to shade that in. You can imagine the roundness of it all. So here, this could be creeping just in the back of that one. Highlights, some squeaky sheen. And there you go. It's a way of expanding your bubbles. I'll leave the construction lines in there, so it's a way of seeing how I developed it. See that if I increase those shades in there, you can really start to see the roundness of it. It stops it looking flat. And obviously a drop shadow would really pop it off the wall. Like that. So Blockbuster slightly different. So obviously they're monolithic. They're giant, huge slabs of all sorts. So let's say, so like my other letters previously in the calligraphy flow, we had a lot of more relaxed form coming in. You don't really do that with blockbusters, because blockbusters are all about that thickness, that heavy set. It's almost like built out of solid granite lumps. So an organic flow might not necessarily fit. You may as well just carry on with a calligraphy flow. So if you're doing a blockbuster, but you want some kind of funk to it, have sort of some basic leans to it, and then that will also start playing with your perspective on it, which is a great way to really jazz up a blockbuster letter. So this almost looks like it's leaning back and you're kind of staring up at it, craning your neck. I guess if you want to try and add some funk to it, you can always separate where the blocks, like give the seams a bit more interest to them. So imagine that would be there. So you always cut in, you want to see where the slabs and blocks have been put together, and really enhance that 3D, kind of leaning back. Disappearing behind you. Or, because a lot of the times, blockbuster letters, this is the horizon, this is the floor, you know, like you'd be painting from the floor up, so your letters won't be floating when you do blockbusters, so if really kind of would just disperse into the floor. Just go back down there. You get the idea. The good thing with blockbuster letters is because the shape of them are so simple. You can actually have a lot of fun on the internal. Really start decorating your font. You could have kind of patterns and whatnots and all kind of things in here. However you want to investigate it, really. And they could be really nice colours, or you might want to keep it nice and plain so it doesn't distract the observer too much. Didn't quite add up there. Who knows? Something to think about. You've got all the space, you may as well try and play with it, or you could put texture into it, maybe some cracks, some aging, some weathering. But yeah, that's a way of spicing up a good solid blockbuster form. as you can see, the sort of the structure, the strength is there. I just tweaked it ever so slightly. But yeah, that is a way you can start developing your style, start learning a bit more. The bubbles are great fun. Really brings you into that roundness, that softness. And the Blockbuster is great for practicing your basics, just getting these pillars and your blocks nicely proportioned and even. And remember, in both of these, it's all about consuming that space. You want to feel like it's taken over. Brilliant. Thank you. Catch you around.